Alright, we're going to investigate using a pulse width modulating module to dim LEDs such as this LED light string, right, this tape light, using pulse width modulation using this controller. And what happened when I tried to use the original cheesy little power supply with the thing was very interesting. This module itself is interesting because it has a DALI input for a digital system. And this would normally be sitting at 16 volts DC, polarity insensitive, anywhere between 11 and 21, and it would be being communicated with by a digital controller. It would then produce a pulse width modulated output to pull down one of 3 channels, and these channels are individually addressable, and these are lovely devices, and they work great. They're also very inexpensive. It says part number DALI 6003 because it has 3 independently addressable channels, but we're not going to do that today. We're not going to use a digital control. We're going to use what they call the TouchDim control. And when you do that, you basically put 5 to 290 volts AC on the DALI input. Now that sounds crazy, but what I'm going to do is this wire's wired to neutral, and this one I'm going to hook up to 120 volt line voltage to do the touch dimming function. The output is this little 20 milliamp LED here that you're probably going to have a hard time seeing, and we're going to test this touch dimming function, because if you're using these LED light strings and such, this is a super cool thing. Now I'm plugging in both the module and the line voltage for the touch dimming function. There's a little bit of light on the LED now. I got to be careful because this is 120 volts hot right here, and this is the touch dim input. So a quick tap puts it out, another quick tap brings it back to where it was. If I hold it down, it dims down. If I hold it down again, it dims up. And I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but the thing is working just perfectly. However, when I used the original power supply that came with the LED light strip and the original light strip, we had a problem. So let's take a look at that. Okay, now we have the power supply that came with the LED light tape connected to the module. This is a chopper, it's a pulse width modulating device, and it is going to drive the string of tape LED lights that came with the power supply. So once again, here is 120 volts hot. This line is 120 volt neutral, and these are going to the DALI input, and when I hit it, it turns them off. Hit it again, turns them back on to their previous level. I can dim them down, I can dim them back up, but when I try and dim them down too far, oh, look at that, I have a problem. Well, this problem, one might think, would be coming from the dimming module, that it would be a problem with the dimming module. That is incorrect. It's actually a problem with this cheap little switching power supply, because using pulse width modulation to dim the LEDs, it's drawing current out of this in pulses. This was designed to be just good enough to run this string when it's connected directly. It cannot withstand having little pulses taken out of it. Okay, just to prove I'm not whistling Dixie here, I replaced the cheap, crappy little power supply that came with a lighting strip with a 12 volt battery. because this is a 12 volt supply. You can't go wrong with a battery. Once again, this is 120 volt line voltage, and we are going to use it as our TouchDim input. And look, I can dim it way up, I can hit it like this, I can dim it way down, and guess what? No flashing. That shows you the minimum dimming range on this thing, which is like 0.1. Turn it off, turn it on, dim it up, right? No problem. So the lesson we've learned here is don't trust a cheap, crappy little switching power supply. Here's an analog supply, and just the little transformer inside this thing probably costs as much as this whole switcher. So there you go. If you're going to put one of these things in, then you are going to want to use a high quality power supply. It might be a switcher, but it won't be a little thing like this. It costs about $1.50 to make. And so our touch dimming input works perfectly. It can accept within anywhere between 5 and 290 volts AC, and by AC they're talking 50 or 60 hertz. Higher frequencies might be rejected.